Bulletproof Radio, a state of high performance.
You're listening to Bulletproof Radio with Dave Asprey. This is an interview that I'm conducting live in person with a good friend. And before we get there, though, you want your cool fact of the day. So here's the cool fact of the day. Every 28 days, your skin renews itself. You're losing like 40,000 skin cells a minute. Oh, there goes one right now. And that means that you can actually cause relatively rapid changes in how you look based on what you do with your skin. Today's interview is with Dr. Oz Garcia, who is, it's hard to say because you do a lot of stuff. Like you're one of the original biohackers. You had like debilitating migraines many years ago. You're a nutritionist and you treat like Fortune 500 CEOs and celebrities and models and oligarchs and like all the like incredibly influential people, and they come in because you do stuff with intravenous nutrition that's unheard of. Every time I come to New York, I come in and I get an IV from you because you always have like the latest stuff that I'm like, how did you find that? So during today's show, and you want to watch this one on YouTube, go to the bulletproof.com/YouTube to find the channel. I'm actually getting an IV of Dr. Oz's special stuff. They're going to put the needle in and like do the IV while I'm talking. Because, well, hey, we don't have so much time. I'm about to head to Men's Health for an interview after this, so we're going to fit in an IV treatment and an interview, and just get to pick your brain and share some cool stuff with listeners. All right, so let's get a needle in.
Now, first, we're going to draw your blood.
Are you going to get some blood for?
We're doing our interview. We're going to be drawing your blood.
Getting some labs here.
Correct, and then we're going to be doing the IV with the same needle in your arm.
Beautiful.
Okay.
And if you're needle phobic, well, you're not going to get much detail on that. It'll just be a little blurry on the camera. We're not going to do the zoom in on it.
We can also cover the nutrients and ingredients that are going into your IV, so your audience knows exactly what you're getting.
Make a fist, please.
Make a fist. All right. I thought you said make a face. I was going to grimace. So I'm fortunate. I have like the world's biggest veins. They're like
they're terrific.
Pipes. So every time phlebotomists see me at the grocery store, they come over and want to like poke my elbows.
One of the things that we like to do, Dave, with our blood work is drill really deep. So we're going to capture an enormous amount of information that you typically wouldn't get with your doctor. Mm-hmm. In a way, what I'm going to do is x-ray your blood. So I get a lot of metrics in terms of what's going on with your body. I can measure the rate of wear and tear. That's one of the more critical things through hormone levels and in large measure the proportion and ratios of hormones one to the other. So the blood work and the way that we do it is a great revelation as to how your body is aging. And I think that that's one of the more terrific things that we do, which you're not going to get with most doctors.
Yeah, it's unheard of. Most of the time you go in, they have like a standard panel. Like I go to the GP in Canada where I live, where the GP's been. It's like, well, there's a standard test, but they're looking at like really old metrics, not using labs that really tell you the nuances.
No, they're not. They're going to look at a CBC, a comprehensive blood count. They're going to do a SMAC, which is an SMA, standard medical analysis. They'll do your cholesterol and get a cursory look at what's going on. For most people, it's good enough. But for individuals that are interested in, I would say the distinctions that you're interested in, and I am, you got to go this deep.
I'm going to live to at least 180.
I'm going with you.
All right. And I don't think that's impossible. In fact, Peter Diamandis was just saying the other day that like for every year you live, we're adding a year to the possible lifespan right now. So people say, that sounds crazy. Like 100 years ago, we didn't have cars, really.
No, 100 years ago, you wouldn't live. You'd be lucky if you lived to 45. That was the average lifespan for a male in America.
Yeah.
Right? And 100 years ago, women would barely make it to 30. They would die in childbirth often enough. I mean, we've come remarkably far in all those ways. You know, we'll make it to 180 if we can avoid an accident along the way. In fact, that's the biggest threat to life extension.
I'm going to piss off some listeners here.
Sure.
But one of my biggest life extension strategies is I drive a heavy pickup truck. I'm sorry, physics is your friend. And I like hybrids and all that stuff, but let me just tell you, I'm 5 out of 5 on every safety thing because of mass.
You got it. That's the most important thing. Some of the better studies that have been done, actually life extension, have been done, as you know, on different animals. One has been done on a species of a mouse-like creature which lives in the Carolinas. There's an island.
Is that the politicians or something?
They should die by accident. Most of them, for heaven's sakes. But as it turns out, we have an island off one of the Carolinas, and just like in the Galapagos, you have a large population of this particular mammal that lives there. And they live extremely long lives for this particular kind of mammal because there are no predators that would go after them. The same species of animals, in terms of living in the Carolinas on land, have much shorter lifespans because they live with a high amount of cortisol, avoiding being consumed. So what we do want to do is avoid accidents at all means possible.
Well, it sounds like for this kind of animal, they're living longer because they're less stressed.
That's correct.
In addition to not getting eaten, which is bad for you.
Exactly.
Now, I'm going to pause you for a second. Looks
Sure.
like we've got 7 or 8 vials of blood for the labs. I'm going to run some advanced hormone panels and things.
Please.
And let's see if I can hold that up to the camera without dropping it. Come on, camera, follow me. There we go. And now we're putting some pink fluid from a giant needle into my arm. What am I getting?
Now, this is what we would call a push as opposed to an IV. An IV would be hanging off a pole, for instance, and the amount of time to deliver an IV could be about 45 minutes to an hour and a half. In a push, which is what this is, we've been able to economize a number of things. The number of nutrients that I can get into you within a very short period of time. In about 10 to 15 minutes, I can get glutathione into you, about 10 to 15,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and acetylcysteine, which I hope your listeners know the value of.
Yeah.
We've been able to compound artichoke. So we've got sterile artichoke, phenomenal for your liver.
Liver detox, okay.
Specifically, we've got sterile licorice. The original studies go back, I'd say about 25, 30 years to Japan, of all places.
This is Twizzlers? Just going in? What is licorice do?
It's one of the best anti-inflammatories in the world. We've got resveratrol, we've got quercetin, we've got DMA, we've got acetyl L-carnitine, we've got piracetam. So you're getting...
Hang on one second there. IV piracetam. So people who listen to Bulletproof Radio a lot know I've been taking piracetam or its sister aniracetam for like 15 years.
Aniracetam we love.
You're the only guy who does intravenous piracetam, and you feel like a great golden god for 3 days. I'm doing interviews. I'm interviewing Ariana Huffington this afternoon, going to her Thrive Global pop-up.
Tell her I say hello. I've been taking care of Ariana.
Oh, beautiful. I love Ariana. And so I just love that my brain's going to be so on for that. So thanks. I didn't realize you put piracetam in there.
Remarkable.
It's cool.
Remarkable. And then we'll do some very basic things too. We'll use some bicarbonate, magnesium citrate, and just to kind of top it all off, a little bit of B12.
So when we first met about 3-4 years ago, I went to like this really cool dinner party that was put on by a mutual friend. And I met you for the first time, and I was losing my voice. I
recall, yeah.
Really intense travel schedule.
You were in really bad shape, yeah.
And you're like, Dave, come to my office tomorrow. And you gave me like sterile seawater and an IV. And you brought my voice back. You brought my brain back, because I had like a big talk at an autism conference. Like it was just a brutal schedule.
Yeah, you were also promoting your book.
Yeah, you saved me with these IVs. They're really powerful things.
They are, and not to oversell them, but you're able to accomplish a great deal with things that interest you and me, like living to 180 years of age. It is one hell of a biohack, I'll tell you that.
So how did you get into IVs? You've been doing this for longer than almost anyone else I can think of.
We've been doing IVs now for close to 25 years, maybe a little bit longer. I learned about IVs originally from a really brilliant naturopath. He's passed away now, Sidney Saffron, back in the 1980s. Sidney was one of the few naturopaths in New York doing IVs in the early 1980s. when you didn't have flexi tubes and hardly any of the ingredients that we now have available. And I started getting them. They helped me a lot. And little by little over the years, we began to refine them. Also with the advent of compounding pharmacies, which did not exist in the 80s. Once compounding pharmacies started to come into their own in the 1990s, we were able to work with them to actually say, hey, can you do this for me? Can you put this together? What about quercetin, for its anti-inflammatory effects? And bit by bit, we've been able to put together a repertoire, portfolio of different nutrients that go into IVs over the course of about 2.5 decades. So this is something that you're rarely going to find anywhere else.
It's been transformative. I did my first IV with EDTA and then DMSA. EDTA is there. I had high lead but more importantly high mercury, but my blood was so sticky that I had this is when I was obese in Silicon Valley. I had like a kind of a gray complexion, and I did EDTA one time, and my skin turned pink instead of gray. It was remarkable. And so I started doing vitamin C, and so this is almost 20 years ago. But the
correct.
It's like going from black and white back then to what you're doing is like 3D multicolor TV, because you've got ingredients that what are for people listening, and most of them have never tried IV nutrients at all,
right?
And I think this is, compared to the cost of a massage, this is a better investment.
I would think so. Yeah.
I mean, you're a very high end, very unusual things, but in the most cities in the country, it's a couple $100.
That's correct.
To do this. And of course, if you're right next to Central Park here in New York, it's always going to be a special thing.
Through the roof.
Yeah, and also you have exclusive formulas and you deal with celebrities, but the impact on people is strong. Where do you see this going? Like you're at the very bleeding edge of these things. Do you think IV nutrients are going to become like mainstream soon?
I got to be very fair about this. I don't think this is a very democratic treatment protocol.
Yeah.
I would hope that in time, as the nutrients become more affordable, certainly for us, you can get a fair exchange of value and bring it to the masses. There are IVs that I think people would benefit from that don't have to be so exotic and so novel in terms of all the nutrients that go into them. Those we also have too. If somebody's getting sick, for instance, coming down with the flu, really bad cold, we've already crafted an IV that's perfect to get your immune system working, like what we did for you. There's a version of that which is a lot less complex and I think much more affordable. Where I see things going in terms of IVs is it's probably going to stay more or less like this. It's going to be available to people that can afford a premium because they're looking for something unique and is going to give them the kind of performance that they're just not going to get by getting vitamin C with B complex, like the old day Myers cocktails, for instance. We've left Myers cocktails in the dust by 2 decades and a half.
So the Myers cocktail is sort of the standard thing. You get that at most IV places.
That's correct.
Out there. And it's still B vitamins and vitamin C going in. It's a lot better than taking a multivitamin.
I would totally agree.
Yeah, but this is another level there. And part of my job at Bulletproof is to find this stuff, find the experts, and then increase demand so much that the supply comes out. So maybe we can democratize this just because more people go to their doctor and say, you're only giving me vitamin C and vitamin B? Like, come on, step up your game. Give Oz a call or whatever the right way to do it is.
Exactly.
What about the regulatory side? Like these are nutrients, not drugs that are going in, but it's a drug delivery. Like if it's a needle, the FDA believes that they should have control over that.
That's correct.
Do you think that's an impediment to adoption, or is that actually like helping to protect people? Like what's the regulatory status of this?
I'll be very frank with you. I think that it does protect people. We stay within all the guidelines that the New York boards require, and we won't go outside of them. There's some nutrients I'd love to have here that would go into an IV that you just can't have in New York State.
What's an example of one of those?
Let me think for a minute. Not MSM, something similar to it.
One of the sulfur compounds?
You're going to have to give me a second.
No problem.
We'll get some air in here. But there are certain nutrients that we just cannot use at all.
Because New York has weird laws about vitamins and lab tests.
Well, the same thing, exactly, with lab testing. There are certain saliva tests that we can't do here. You can't do hair biopsies in New York, which is unfortunate.
There's a certain medical freedom thing that New York State actually pisses me off. And I used to run a lab testing company years ago with my wife, Dr. Lana. We did like immune response to metal implants. So people who are allergic to titanium, you get that in your hip and you're allergic, you'll be inflamed for the rest of your life.
By the way, I just thought of some of the things that you can't do in New York, but go ahead.
So the problem is New York has weird laws, and my belief here is like, look, it's my data, it's my biology. I have a fundamental right, like an inalienable right to know what's going on in my body. And anytime anyone says that they have a right to stop me from having data about how I'm functioning,
that's correct.
I'm like, you are my enemy. Like, you are a bad person if you want to do that to someone. So whoever wrote those laws, like, those are people who have no business writing laws.
Well, New York State is one of two states. I forget which is the other one. Where the regulations are extremely high in terms of what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. You know, it'd be great if we could have, like I said, hair testing for a number of things, certainly for heavy metal testing. You can't do that in New York State. You have to go to Connecticut, get your hair done there, or go to Philadelphia, do it in Miami. And that's really too bad, because when that test is available, you can get a really quick look at, you know, what you know, how much mercury is your body carrying, how much lead you got, how much arsenic you got. How much formaldehyde is in your tissue. And that's a very unfortunate thing that we cannot have that here, because hair tests are highly regulated.
It's something that I hope will change. And some of the new blood spot testing is becoming really interesting, where you don't need a doctor in New York to recommend it. You can get a test kit. You can prick your finger.
That you can do now.
Yeah, and you can do that. And it doesn't matter if the New York State doesn't like it.
That's correct.
Do it anyway.
Exactly. Well, we found that out also with Biophysical 250. Here you have a remarkable blood test. It'll give you 250 very unique panels. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, you couldn't get that test in New York. You could not collect the blood here and send it out. So it was unfortunate, because the data that you would get from that was terrific. Talking about drilling deep, I mean, the genetic information that you got from Biophysical 250 would give you so much in terms of how you can craft your eating, your practices, and so on. We now found a way around it, you know, and we're able to get that data. And again, it contributes a lot to the well-being of our clients.
It's a huge thing. So recommendation for everyone on listening: getting basic lab tests, even if you're in mid-20s, you want to get your baselines.
You got to, yeah.
What would you say is most important for someone under 30 to get tested, assuming that they're feeling okay, but maybe not amazing all the time?
You know, I tend to err on the side of caution. Mm-hmm. So even with somebody under 30, I mean, depending on where they live, if they're highly urbanized, if they're working on Wall Street, if they're certainly a New York City resident, I'm going to try and capture as much data as I can.
Right.
So we toss out a big net and see, you know, what comes in. So the test varies very little between somebody who's 30 and somebody who's 65, with the exception that if you're past 50, I'm going to look at all your cancer markers. I'll likely not do that with somebody under 30.
Well, the thing is, when you're under 30, unless you
hormones for sure under 30, no matter what.
I got to say, I wish I never had healthy hormones under 30, but knowing what your 25-year-old hormones look like, and that's about a $300 or $400 test for the average person. That data is precious, because when you're 45, like I'll be 45 next year.
You're a kid. I'm going to be 66 next month.
You don't look anywhere near 66, Oz. If you guys get a chance to see him on the internet, on YouTube, like, you are an example of what 25 years of anti-aging does.
Thank you.
Because it's not like you just walk in, I'm young again. That's hard. That's expensive and just difficult biologically. But
Correct.
If you prevent all these little cuts over time, it's much easier. But so if you're 45 or 65 and you know your 25-year-old hormone levels, like, okay, this is where I am when I'm young. So I want to maintain those hormone levels using a lifestyle, using supplements, and using hormone treatments if that's useful.
Well, you know, what you're finding with individuals that say under 30 years of age is so much disruption. I don't mean disruption, you know, within hormone levels. You know, you get men with higher levels of estrogen.
I had tons. I had more than my mom when I was 26.
Unbelievable. and I could go on and on and on. Depleted levels of DHEA, pregnenolone, in large measure because of the levels of stress that they're under.
Yeah.
Consequentially, they're battling with their weight. Women, you're also going to find high disruption with their hormones, contributing to, as you know, lots of problems with everything from PMS to fertility problems these days. So doing a hormone panel, I think, is critical at any age, certainly under 30.
So you do a hormone panel. What else would you recommend for someone like at baseline? And the reason I'm asking is when you're under 30, you're usually just building your career, you're building your assets. When I was under 30, I'm like, wow, I'm spending, 15% of my monthly budget. I was sick and I was 300 pounds. So
Got it. Wow.
and I'm spending 15, maybe sometimes 20% of my budget on tests, treatments. There's a reason I spent $500,000 on hacking myself. Actually, more than that now probably. But I went through all this because I'm like, I feel like I'm old and my brain is working and I want to continue being able to pay my bills. I want to be able to work. So I'm going to fix this or I'm going to basically go broke trying.
I got to tell you, something as rudimentary as a complete thyroid panel, but I mean complete thyroid, looking at thyroid antibodies, looking to reverse T3. If you go to your doctor and you're not feeling well and your energy's low and you've got problems with, let's say, your moods and so on, I'm shocked at the number of individuals that will go see, let's say, a psychopharmacologist because they're not feeling well or they're depressed or they're anxious, and they won't run a blood test. And if they do, they leave a thyroid panel out, and that's really disturbing because you're going to find so often so many problems just with thyroid alone. A complete adrenal profile, a complete steroidal and adrenal panel, just so you can look at what's going on with cortisol, what's going on with norepinephrine, what's going on with DHA in particular, and like I said before with pregnenolone. From those levels alone, just from pregnenolone alone, you can tell the amount of pressure that a person is under, and the rate at which they're burning through, their actual physical, nutrient base from the amount of stress that they're under.
Yeah, it's remarkable to do that, and I know people they're always tracking how much of an investment I'm going to make in my biology versus in my own car or my house, and buying a ring for someone or whatever phase of life you're in. And I wish that I had been less destructive when I was younger, and that I'd had more data when I was younger. And so I'm encouraging people to get started. And a lot of people listening to, they're like, okay, I'm already 50, like what I do now. But you're saying there's these same set of panels. Do you have anything on your website? And I write about panels on Bulletproof,
sure, yeah.
But you have a different clinical perspective than I do, given that I'm not a clinician. I'm just a biohacker, right? So do you have like a list on your website of like panels that are useful or
the list isn't up, but
I can type out what you said, so there'll be a transcription then. Okay.
Terrific. And I do think you and I both know, I mean, the whole self-optimization movement, you can go crazy with that shit. You can measure just about any aspect of what's going on with your biology and keep refining inside of that. And we can go that far if we want to, but I think with this kind of blood test, you're getting enough data, enough intelligence so that you can optimize efficiently, without having to go to, measuring every aspect of how you sleep and blah, 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 and so on. And you can go that far. But the way that we've been able to interpret blood now, after almost 4 decades of looking at blood tests, well over 10,000 of them, the amount of information you can glean is really quite remarkable.
You can do so much with the data.
That's right.
Now, one of the things that you do, because you're a nutritionist and in the way you think about things, so you have like one of the most enviable vitamin collections over here, and this is what you use for your clients. So this is a confession. Every time I come to New York, I come see Oz, and I always get an IV, and then I always go in there and go, okay, oh wait, you got something, I haven't tried that one yet. You had some other thing, some kind of Russian thing I hadn't tried before. And there aren't a lot of people on Earth, like, 'cause you go to my house, it looks a lot like your vitamin thing in there, but that's also my take.
Got it. See my apartment.
Yeah, so you have some amazing stuff. what are the types of supplements that you use on these are high-end Wall Street and celebrity and movie star types? What are the big supplement recommendations, like nutritional recommendations that you make for them?
Let me see how I can put this together. I'm a big proponent of intermittent fasting. Let's start there. So I've been doing intermittent fasting now for about 20 years. No matter who I'm working with, whatever the problem may be, the concerns may be, at some point that's going to be built into their practices.
Okay.
I'm very high on tricking intermittent fasting out with moving to high ketosis and then stabilizing. So it's never about one way or another.
So the cyclical stuff. The bulletproof recommendations are very similar on that front. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And I've learned a lot from you and from a number of people that we both, like and admire and have studied, over the years. But intermittent fasting came to my attention through Ori Hofmeckler almost 20 years ago.
He's a great, even intermittent fasting a lot longer than I have. That just full credit there. The bulletproof coffee hack is new, and Ori is like one of the original guys talking about how coffee and mTOR work, right? That's
correct.
Yeah, and do you want to talk about mTOR real quick? Listeners would probably love that.
I think mTOR is a game changer.
So explain what it is.
We're looking at a kind of quasi nutrient that has a remarkable impact on the way that the body performs, and it may have an impact on how long you may live, very possibly on the quality of your life, so long as you're alive. We're looking at mTOR now with studies on dogs, for heaven's sakes, and the fact that it may extend the life of your pet.
So, speaking of dogs, where's your dachshund?
Oh, I kept him home today. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do this interview.
I was going to hold him up on the interview. We both have dachshunds, which is kind of cool.
He would be all over us. So mTOR is coming into the picture now as I get to know more about it, how it works better, and looking at the clinical data on it. But terribly impressive and very relevant.
One of the techniques that made a difference for me in just putting on my muscle and losing all the fat and all is it's mammalian target of rampamycin, this strange compound.
Please.
And to build muscle, you need to have small periods of high amounts of mTOR. So you want to have like spikes in mTOR. But if you have mTOR high all the time, you might get cancer.
That's correct.
So it's this weird thing, kind of like fasting. If you fast all the time, that's called starvation. But if you do intermittent fasting, right, it's a good thing. And so mTOR appears to be the same way.
mTOR has kind of a tipping point. You're correct.
And the three things that push mTOR down, so the way I think of it, and this is influenced by Ori, to be honest, is you can suppress mTOR by fasting.
That's correct.
You can suppress it by exercise, and you can suppress it by coffee.
Yes.
And then as soon as you stop suppressing it, it bounds up, and that's when you put on all the muscle. So you could do just one of those three things, but what if you did intermittent fasting, bulletproof coffee, and then you exercise? Because then you suppress the hell out of this stuff, and then it bounds really back, and you get more benefits in less time. And I'm lazy, right? So that's, I call it mTOR stacking, but you're obviously working on it as well.
Yeah. And also too, when I do my intermittent fasting, I'm Cuban. I've been a coffee drinker since I was a kid. I take periods of time off because it can also make me a little bit nuts. But that being said, caffeine is something that I'm going to use when I'm doing intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
I do caffeine in some form or another almost every day anyway. But if you're going through an 8 to 12 hour spell, on intermittent fasting, you need caffeine. We were talking earlier about the different kinds of caffeine that are now available. One of our products, for instance, where we've kind of tricked it out so that it's a bit smoother during the day and you're not spiking so much with the ups and downs of being on caffeine, but using, say, bulletproof on in the middle of the day where, you're up at 5:30, you did your workout, maybe you had your morning high protein smoothie. We had a little conversation about beta hydroxybutyrate. But let's say that you want to use exogenous ketones. You get that out of the way in the morning, and you're not going to have a meal till 8 or 9 that evening. I'm going to have caffeine during the day. And a cup of bulletproof in the afternoon with I'm going to skip the butter
You put the brain octane in to get the BHB from the brain octane. Well, you're using brain octane because MCT.
Exactly.
MCT is a different compound.
Yes, contribute.
Yeah, no, it's just we're getting our 5-minute warning. But yeah, in MCT oil, there's 4 different types of it, and most of the MCT out there, they're putting in the cheap stuff that doesn't raise ketones.
That's correct.
So the brain octane raises ketones 4 times or sometimes 5 times higher than coconut oil, but it's at least twice as high as MCT oil.
And it's primarily caprylic acid too.
Yeah, that's all that's in it. And, but capric acid blunts the effect. So people are putting lauric acid in there, which actually doesn't raise ketones at all.
That I did not know.
It's a big problem because I popularized MCT oil. So then they're like, it's legal to say this is MCT oil, even though it doesn't have any effect on ketones in laboratory tests.
That's incredible. So I hope you guys are following this. The use of MCT oil on an intermittent fasting day, I think, is critical.
It is, except the MCT won't raise the ketones and it makes you poop on yourself.
Got it.
So that's why I switched to brain octane.
From
MCT.
Actually, that's what I meant.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Let's be precise about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to use brain octane.
You do use, okay, yeah. I know you have it in the vitamin cabinet back there.
I just grab it off the shelf.
Yeah, I do know that there are people out there just buying generic MCT, but they get the runs and they don't get the ketones, and then they're like, it doesn't work. I'm like, well, you kind of have to do it right. Right?
Correct.
So it's sort of like when you stick a needle in your arm and pump in some vitamin C, and so I didn't get all the benefits. Like, yeah, you didn't do it right. So you've got some cool caffeine derivatives that you're working with.
That's correct.
All right, that's pretty cool. What about sleep? What's your latest thinking on sleep?
You can't get enough.
Okay. Enough or enough quality?
You just can't get enough. I mean, you were talking about meeting Arianna Huffington when I was working with her. Her whole thing that actually I think may have moved her into this whole new space was the problems with sleep.
She really needed her sleep.
Yeah, and as you get older, you and I both know that different levels of brain nutrients are depleting, and your sleep can go off its rails. So unless you're getting a good 7 to 8 hours of sleep, you're going to pay a high price. And we've worked very carefully with certain nutrients that you can kind of trick out and take before bedtime, even during the day, that make a tremendous difference in terms of your ability to stay asleep at night. With men too, as you get older, if you're not taking care of your prostate, that's getting you up every several hours. You're peeing, and that's making you sleep poorly. So I think you got to get your 8 hours sleep. And you and I both know you're going to get so many things that occur during a very dynamic period of your day, which is your night, your sleep. Memory consolidation occurs in sleep, levels of growth hormone that you're producing. So 8 hours no matter what. And I think finding out about the nutrients that are going to work best for you. For some people, it's melatonin. For some people, it's cysteine. For some people, it's magnolia. For some people, it's any number of other things. Even turmeric for some people works really well to help them sleep. There's
a couple of blog posts. If you Google bulletproof sleep hacking, then I've written pretty much every ingredient that's known to improve sleep is there. And now, all right, we're coming up on the amount of time that we have. And you've written 4 books on anti-aging, and I certainly have them on my shelf at home.
We got a 5th coming up, and it'll be an ebook the next time.
Okay, cool.
This is actually up to about what you and I are thinking about. It's called "How to Be a Rock Star at 120."
Nice. Okay, well, when that comes out, let me know. I'll tell listeners about it.
Totally inspired by Mick Jagger at 72 having an 8th kid, but that's another story.
You're one of those kind of maverick guys who's gone out there. You found stuff that works, and you've applied it to some of the world's elite performers, and you've done it for 25 years, and they keep coming back because I'm feeling the stuff that was in my IV right now. I'm feeling really good. I landed last night. We were out till almost 2 a.m. At least I was up till 2 a.m. Because you land late, you got to have dinner, and you got to work on your presentations and all that. So it's pretty cool you've done all that. And based on all that knowledge, I want to ask you this question that's in every interview. And if someone came to you tomorrow and they said, Oz, I want to perform better at everything I do. What are the 3 most important pieces of advice you'd have for me? What would you tell them?
Gosh, the first thing that comes to my mind is you got to get fit. Being someone who's going to turn 66 in less than a month now, and being a runner for over 40 years, 4 decades, I can't imagine a life without being a runner. How it's made me who I am. So I think number one is you got to find what's going to work for you, and you don't have to be a runner. You don't have to run the way that I do. You know, I both know if you're looking at Ben Ferguson or whoever's out there talking about fitness, even 20 minutes a day is going to make a huge difference in terms of quality of life. Second is sleep. Had you asked me that, this question 20 years ago, I would have completely jumped over sleep. There were often many times where I would do 4 hours, 5 hours, go to work, power through it, and maybe catch up on a weekend. Little did I know, the price that I was paying. So I'd say secondarily sleep. Third is, it is a bit more philosophical. You could say it's the quality of food that you eat, it's what you eat, and so on. But I think having a means by which you can actually center yourself on a daily basis, a more existential perspective on yourself, on your life. Meditation has re-entered my life now after 20 years of not doing it. I studied with John Kabat-Zinn 2 decades ago at Omega Institute, and I kept it up for about a year or two. And now, listening to you, listening to Tim, reading what I'm reading, and buying, getting a hacking device to actually get me to meditate all over again. I love Spire
Nice.
or Muse. And I think
Melon is another one of the low ends, like the entry level home use ones.
Exactly, but what they do is they kind of kick you into it. So I think being able to go into your space every day makes a huge difference. So those are the 3 top things I would recommend right now.
Beautiful. And one of these days I'll get you out to, I opened a neuroscience training institute in Seattle.
Well, you told me I want to go.
Yeah, we'll get you hooked up. So we'll have to find a 5-day time when you want to travel. That's always the trouble. It's pretty powerful stuff. And that's been a game changer for me. So I double down on the meditation one. Even if you're just meditating in a cave without any technology, it's okay. Or meditating in a bed even. So. Awesome. Well, Oz, where can people find out more about your practice? I'm sure there's some people in New York who probably want to come see you.
Have them go to my website, www.ozgarcia.com. I think it's the best thing.
Okay, ozgarcia.com. It's pretty easy.
And they can always call the office at 212-362-5569. But go to the website. That'll set you up right away.
Awesome. Beautiful. And thanks for the IV. Thanks for just being here. And thanks for 25 years of breaking rules in IV nutrients, because the stuff you do is pretty powerful. It totally works.
Thanks, Dave. I'm very, very happy that we did this today. Very proud to be with you.
Awesome. If you enjoyed today's episode, you know what to do. You can head on over to Oz's website. You can learn some more. You pick out one of his books. You could head on over to Amazon and look at Headstrong, my new book about mitochondria. In fact, I'm going to get Oz an advanced copy of that as soon as we get our proofs. And then there's a bunch of new supplements from Bulletproof that are just out. I'm going to be shipping a bunch of those, Oz.
I can't wait.
We've got the calcium D-glucarate. We've got some methylated B vitamins like folic acid and B12 and things like that. Stuff that I take every day anyway. I just want the purest stuff, so I'm going to make it. And if I could get it all intravenously every day, I would, but that's kind of not really easy.
I think we may have gotten some folic acid into you today, too.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thanks again, Oz. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks, Steve. Mic to mic. All right.